Hey guys, welcome back to the Free Life Agents podcast. And we're joined here today by a really special guest, once again from a different country. He is another young real estate agent who is crushing it in the real estate space in Malaysia and on video marketing over on YouTube. You can check out his channel. But his name is Victor Lal, and welcome to the show, Victor.
Hey, hey guys, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you for taking the time to do this, Victor. I know you must be super busy, with your real estate business, and then also focusing on your YouTube channel, which I'm sure we're gonna get to a little bit here as well in the
Mm.
interview. But just for the audience sake, for those who might not be familiar with what you're doing and your current background, how did you get started in real estate, and how are you able to you know be I think one of the top real estate agents in Malaysia on YouTube right now at such a young age at 26.
Well, when I first started, I was actually doing another job back then. I was an auditor for a firm here in Malaysia. So I did that for around, I think, 6, 7 months, I think. And after that, I just completely hated the job. Hated it. I was miserable in the job. So one day, I caught up with one of my old buddies. We were at the gym. So as we were exercising, he told me that, hey, bro, guess what? I recently got into real estate. So I was a little bit curious. So I asked him, oh, okay, that's great. Yeah, that's good. How is it? So he said, it's great. It's fantastic. Then he asked me, guess how much did I earn last month? Back then, we were only 20, 21 years old. So I thought, wow, okay, what a question. So because the medium income here for a fresh graduate here in Malaysia is around 3,000 ringgit. So I just made a slightly high guess. I said, I don't know, 5,000, 6,000, which was nearly twice the expected amount. He said, as he was pushing his weights, he said, no, bro, it was 18,600 and something, something, something. All of the small decimals came out. So back then, those numbers were crazy. Back then, it was just crazy. It was five, 6 times the expected amount for a fresh graduate, a 20, 21-year-old. So it got me very interested. I inquired a little bit more and then I jumped in, and then the rest was history.
Yeah, wow. So that's a really interesting story of how you got started. Once your friend is as he's pushing the weight, he's
Yeah,
telling you how much money he's making. So
yeah,
that should probably be like a pretty impressive sight to see, right?
impressive. And it was only his first or second month in the real estate game.
Oh, wow,
Yeah,
wow,
back
that's
then.
yeah,
It's
that must
crazy.
be pretty encouraging.
Very encouraging, very. I mean, uh, so yeah, that's how it is. And then in regards to what was the other question again? Online video marketing.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that in a second here, but yeah, I was just wanting to know your background, making sure that your audience knows a little bit more about you and how you got started, because I always love to ask that when we have somebody a little bit younger on the show like yourself, and
Okay.
especially who's doing really well as well. So kind of getting started, you say you started when you were about 21, 22. Is that kind of
Yep.
like the
Around there. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, so obviously that's in the younger range, right? You can't really argue with that.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you kind of struggled with in the beginning, or some things that you had to overcome? How were you able to do that?
Struggles. Honestly, I mean, thinking about it right now, I had very, very minimal struggles. I mean, of course, this is me looking back, but I'm sure when I was there at that time, there was a lot of struggles. But I think the main reason why I can't think of any right now, I think is because I had just one mindset. Whatever struggles that come, it's not a problem. I just have to solve it. That's it. If it's not enough listings, just increase your listings. If you don't have enough leads, just call a little bit more. So there's no struggles actually. It's just a problem that you have to solve. Once it's solved, it's done. So I'm not struggling. I'm not, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. I think my mindset was, how can I do it? How can I, get it done? So I don't think there was anything, there were problems, but no struggles.
Wow, that's awesome, man. So I love that mindset that you have that you just mentioned there, is that whenever something happens, you see it as a problem and you don't see it as as a struggle or a challenge. So I think
Yeah.
the words that we use to describe what we're doing every day, that kind of really reflects our mindset. So I really like that, how you're seeing things. And I think, we need to adopt more of that as well, right? Instead of seeing them as struggles, just see them as problems that you can overcome. And has that always kind of been your mindset even before you got into real estate and business? Is that just kind of the way you're wired?
I guess so, yeah. I mean, even when I was younger, I would just think, I, I've never struggled in much, honestly. I mean, whenever I see something that's wrong, oh, all right, how do we fix it? So there's always a solution. You just have to like dig deep and find it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's just you're a problem solver, and that's one of the things that that you're wired to do, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, my dad was the same guy as well.
Mhm.
He would never complain because a lot of people, when they face something, they would just complain. Oh, it's so hard. Oh, plus today I'm having like a backache. Oh, and the interest rates are so high. Uh, no one can succeed in this market. So a lot of people, they just complain. There's always something wrong somewhere. In fact, everything is wrong. But for me, I just see it as, if it's not within my control, government's interest rate, then it's not something to be bothered by because I can't control that. So I just focus on the things that I can control.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it, man. So when there's something out there that you can't control, you're focusing your energy on it. All you're doing is, you're stressing yourself out, right? So
Yeah.
it's absolutely
Yeah.
pointless to do that. And I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah, it's when you struggle because you're constantly focused on things that you cannot control. You're struggling.
yeah. Yeah, and that's what creates. I think what people don't realize, like that's what creates anxiety, is that when you're looking at, we're looking at things externally. That's really what happens when you feel like the world is pressing up on you, or you feel a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
So that's really good that you mentioned that. So I mean, like, is that just something that you've never like kind of experienced, right? So when you're, or I mean, obviously it might be a little bit different. You can tell us, but when you're focused, only on problems, right? Only on solving problems, and are you focusing more on just the solution, so when something arises you're not even immediately in your mind is just how can I solve this, and has that kind of taken off a lot of stress? Because obviously in the real estate industry sometimes it can be a little bit stressful dealing with such a big purchase, but once you're kind of shifting your mindset, have you kind of seen a change, at least between you and some of the other agents who might be in your market focused more on the struggle side, or more on the things that they can't control?
Yeah, I would say, uh, for newer agents that's on the market, as compared to someone who is like a problem solver rather than a struggler, I would say it does make a massive difference because when you keep on thinking about things that you cannot control and you're finding it like it's this big problem and it becomes like a struggle to you, then you become paralyzed. You're just constantly having this anxiety. You can't move, you can't think, you just choose to sometimes wait it out. I mean, the problem will just solve itself. I mean, it's not going to solve itself. It's not like you're going to go for a holiday. I had a bad week. You're going to go for a holiday. You come back, the problem is still there. So I think it it might just be one of the bigger determining factors whether do you become a successful or unsuccessful real estate agent. So yeah, I think you really have to be a problem solver.
Yeah, awesome, man. I love what you said there about the problem's not going to solve itself, right? Because sometimes people think that it will, and I think that's the mistake of it, where they're focusing, again, like they're focusing their energy on all the negatives, and then they just believe that by doing that, by looking at the negative side of things, the solution will come, and not exactly sure how that how that works, but but I guess some people do that. So that's really
Yeah,
good that you're realizing that, and that's wow, it's crazy because you've always been like that. Where some people can kind of realize it at a point in their life. So I think that's
yeah,
really gonna serve you.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, man, I think just shifting topics a little bit here, and clearly, I was able to kind of, I was, that's how I find you was, on Google, on YouTube, and through video marketing. So, clearly, I think, I think you're one of the top, video marketers, or with the top YouTube channel for real estate in Malaysia right now for all real estate agents. So, I mean, what was your kind of inspiration to kind of get started on YouTube and video marketing, as a way to get yourself out there and to educate clients?
Well, I think it started with just like a thought, an idea, because I was thinking on how
Yeah,
can I further push this even further. I had good results back then, but how can I, push it even further? I mean, just break off the ceiling. Then I looked up online. I just simple thinking. I mean, modern age, online, videos, it makes a lot of sense. You just have to go and do it.
yeah,
I'm sure a lot of real estate agents on the market has the exact same idea. It's either they've talked about it before, they thought about it before. A lot of people has thought and talked about it before, but no one's actually doing it because they cannot take that first step. So that's how it all started. It just started with a thought, an idea, and above all, execution. Because execution is where a lot of people miss.
right. And that's something that I kind of want to like touch on as well, because I think this is really good right now. What you're touching on in terms of execution and what you're focusing on. So I think what a lot of people have is they just struggle, right? They just struggle with translating an idea into execution, and just want to like kind of see your experience of like what's the like the process internally. If you can, I know it's a difficult question to kind of answer, but like what's the process internally when you have a thought that you just immediately translate it into an idea? Is it just or translate it into into action execution? Is it just comes really naturally to you, or is there some steps in the process where it makes it a little bit easier for you to actually carry that out?
I would say uh, you have to be, of course, you have to be a person that executes. That's number one. But what makes it
Yeah.
easier is your overall mindset. I mean, in my office, I have a poster that I made myself that says, talk is cheap. So every time when I see that, it just reminds myself, whatever ideas that I have, it could be a fantastic idea, but without any execution, it will never come into reality. So having that mindset, talk is cheap, talk is cheap, talk is cheap daily, it's always ingrained in your head. It just makes everything a whole lot easier, especially if you really do have that personality to begin with, the execution personality. When you see that, it just makes it easier. But if you don't have that personality and you have that, it will help.
Yeah. No, it definitely will. And I love that you have a poster of it, and you just something you were just talking about is the repetition, right? That you're
Yeah,
getting these visual cues that you see it every day, so that it's reminding you. And I think that's really where it all starts, right? It starts in your mind, and then that's
yeah,
how you begin to kind of execute things as well. So
yeah,
that's awesome, man. And in terms of like making decisions, right? It sounds like you're extremely decisive, right? I think that's one of the keys to being successful is just being decisive, right? So I mean, would you also like think that as well, that you're just a more decisive person because you're focused on the execution, or
decisiveness. I would say for me, I personally think that I try to make a lot of good decisions,
Mhm.
but when I'm clear on something that makes a whole lot of sense, I make a decision straight away without even thinking.
Yeah,
But if something is like iffy, it's like a question mark there, it's not very solid, I'll I'll wait a very long time before I make that decision. So I can be very decisive and indecisive at the same time. It just depends on what it is. If it's a no-brainer, of course, go straight for it.
right.
But if someone proposes to me that is iffy, might work, might not work, I'll be very, very hesitant. Very.
Yeah, exactly. And like I think that's a given, right? Where something's a no brainer, you just got to be decisive on it. But for a lot of people, that's not the case. And it's interesting because I think it's just procrastination, or what do you think kind of is the case? Like, why do you think some people are just not as decisive, even when it's like a no brainer, whereas it's a little bit different.
Well, most decisions that I make right now involves, of course, upfront payments, money. So I think that if a person has a no-brainer decision right now, but they're still hesitant to make that decision, they're procrastinating, could be because they're money scared. They have
Mhm.
it, but they just keep on thinking, oh, what if it never comes back? I think it's all the fear and all the anxiety and them telling themselves that it might not work out. So I think it's because people are just scaring themselves, even though it's
Yeah.
a no-brainer decision. The money scared, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of gets back onto what we're talking about, right? Like what you focus on is really what would translate into your execution and what you're doing or not doing your day in your daily life, in your business, and your decisions that you're making as well. So
Yeah.
that's awesome, man. I'm really enjoying this right now. So yeah, so if you guys are listening, I mean, Victor's given a lot of good stuff. You don't become one of the top agents in an entire country, at 26 by just kind of cruising around, right? So you have to have some kind of different mindset when it comes to success.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, okay, yeah. So moving on to like shifting gears a little bit, when it comes to your current marketing right now in the videos that you make, right? What are some of the ideas that you have, or what is the thought process behind like a specific video that goes into the process of creation, execution, and everything like that?
Okay. I've been doing videos for I think a year and a half, 2 years now. My initial videos were too direct
Hmm.
because nowadays marketing cannot be too direct. Apple can't say buy now. They can't say that. They can't say that it's the best phone. They can't really say that. My initial videos, I was too direct. Buy this. This is the best house in this specific location for this specific price point. It was too direct. It was not very effective. But right now, what I'm doing and what I found out is that I have to sell indirectly. So what I'm doing right now is I'm providing free information. What are the steps on buying a property? What are the costs involved in buying a property? Why is this location, not this house, but why is this location better in comparison to this location? So right now, what I'm doing is that I'm providing free information for a long period of time so that over time, when a person thinks about buying a property in this specific location or this one, they would think about me first. So I'm not directly asking them to buy from me. I'm just giving you stuff for free so that when you do want to buy, you think about me first. So it's like an indirect way of executing this marketing strategy as compared to last time. It's too direct, which is the wrong way of marketing.
Yep, exactly. I think that's really good that you picked up on that as well. Like especially early, I think that's what people don't realize is that when you're giving free value in the beginning, that's when people come back for more value, and that's what you're saying, right? If you're giving somebody free information, they're gonna see it, and then the next time they think of buying a property, right, they're gonna think of you first, and they're gonna come back to you on that. So
Yeah.
you know are you one of the only people who's doing that in your market? Because I was doing some research, and I don't think there's a lot of similar channels or similar strategies.
Not a lot. Not a lot. I mean, I don't research on my competitors too much,
Mhm.
but whenever I do some research, I hardly see any. Of course, there are one or two, but I just find that it's not really well presented. Video quality, audio quality, the overall presentation, the content, the information. It's not a lot. I would say not a lot.
Yeah, and I think that's what really gives you a strategic or an advantage over everybody else, right? Is that you're one of the
Yeah.
early adopters of it in your market, one of the first people to jump on it, right?
Yep.
And then that's, I'm curious a little bit more about, like, what was the what was the inspiration behind that? If, usually when people see, like, they see market leaders doing it in their own market. So I mean, clearly you did some research, either in other markets around the world, or where you just kind of come up with that idea on your own. So what was the kind of the inspiration to get started in that space?
You mean this indirect way of marketing?
Yeah, like the indirect way of marketing and then using video as well. Mhm.
I think it's just trial and error. Because when I did the direct marketing last time, I just looked at the stats and the overall feeling to it. I could just feel that people are not biting. They're not engaging as much as I would like. So you just brainstorm, just think about it, what's going on, and you look at big brands like McDonald's.
Mhm.
McDonald's ads, they don't. There's not even a single word. There's only a sound. Bum, 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 bum. It's only a sound. And whenever they do their marketing, it's just people smiling, people eating. There's no words, no one speaking anything. And they're not even asking you to buy. So from there, and then after seeing a few other big brands like iPhone, Apple, McDonald's, KFC, Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola, it has one of the shortest ads. It's just a couple of seconds where they just open the caps. That's it. It's just a sound. So I saw it as like an indirect way of marketing. And then I just incorporated that. It just came in as like an idea. I sort of incorporated it into my own channel. And I just thought, why not just provide free value first and we'll see how it goes. And so far, I think it's not too bad. It's doing better than the direct marketing style.
Yes, definitely. I mean, for sure, it's gonna do better than like a direct marketing style. And that's awesome, man. That you're looking at the different ads of, like, from McDonald's and Coca-Cola and these big name brands, and kind of incorporating some of these things, because I feel like what agents they don't realize is that they're running a business themselves, right? I think
Mm.
that's the way you want to treat it, and then they feel that every industry is a little bit different, but in the long run you can actually take a little bit from all the other industries, the big name brands, and then clearly that
Yeah,
has worked out really well for you, Victor. So
not
that's
bad.
awesome. That's good on you. And kind of moving in that same conversation, of indirect marketing and then versus direct marketing, and some of the trial and error that you did. Are you seeing that that's most of where your clientele is coming from now, or is there like a specific story where you can kind of point to, whereas this specific client has seen me on video before, and this is where my direct or my indirect approach of giving free value first has really paid off.
Well, during the lockdown, which
Mhm.
was I think a couple of months back, there was a lockdown here in Malaysia. We did manage to sell not a lot, but I would say, let's say how out of 10 deals, 20%, one or two deals will be from our online ads, YouTube marketing. And this person, because it was during the lockdown, so they were not even able to see the property. But we had video presentations on it, we had virtual tours, and they just bought it just from online without even seeing the property. So I would say, in terms of effectiveness, it is still not as effective as our current online adverts. I believe in the US you have what, Zello, was it?
Yeah, Zillow.
Zillow, yeah, it was Zillow, not
So
Zello. Yeah.
yeah.
So we have, it's not as effective as Zillow, but it does bring in 10 to 20% of the business.
Well, yeah, and I think you're mistaken a little bit here, or not mistaken, but, like, I don't think Zillow works as well as they advertise themselves to be. So
Really? Really?
yeah,
Ah,
yeah,
this here in Malaysia, the Zillow here in Malaysia
Mhm.
works fantastic.
Really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just a market trend thing, where it's just a different point in the market right now, because in the beginning Zillow did work really well in the US. There's a
Oh,
lot of agents making a lot of money on their using their platform, but It's just right now it doesn't. It's not the same, right? The market becomes more saturated, and more agents are using it now. Everybody's on Zillow, so it doesn't
Oh,
work quite as well in the
that's
past.
why you
But
guys have to branch out to other mediums of advertising.
no, exactly. That's exactly it. Yep. Because we can't just rely essentially on a certain platform, and so now Zillow's become essentially just like a paid platform, right? Like a paid ad platform here in the U.S.
Okay. All
So
right.
yeah. Yeah, man. So I think that's why I think you're doing so great in Malaysia. Like you're ahead of the market, right? You're already ahead of what's gonna come later when everybody's on your Zillow platform because you already have your different audience, your different market, and your
Yeah.
different medium of marketing as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, you gotta stay ahead. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome, man. So I had no idea. So I had no idea that that was the same way. In a different country as well, because in our kind of like our limited thought here in the U.S. is that when it comes to Zillow or similar platforms, they do not work. So it's good to see that some of these new markets that are emerging are not quite the case yet, and so agents that can still take advantage of it. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
yep. Kind of changing gears again here a little bit. Wanted to ask you a little bit more on just the real estate situation, which is a good transition from what we're just talking about
Yeah.
in Malaysia right now. So the real estate market conditions and some of the things that you're seeing right now for our investors friends that are listening.
Well, I would say for the Malaysian market right now, it is either staying at the same price or taking a slight dip. So it's still, the curve is still, it's not like last time. For the past 3, 4 years now, it has been like this.
Hmm.
It's going down really, really fast. But right now, it's just going down slowly, but it is still going down. Going up? No, we've never seen it. We have not seen it for the past, I think, 5, 6 years now.
Wow. Okay. That's pretty interesting, actually. And I don't know if like how much you would be able to answer this, but like in terms of like economic conditions and different conditions, what are you seeing that are affecting the price points where it's almost like a continuous downtrend market?
Yeah, I would say two things as well. Just right off the bat right now. Number one is just the Malaysia's overall market because we're not
Mhm.
doing very well, not just in the real estate space, but in many other spaces as well. We're not doing fantastic in terms of the overall economy. So that's number one. That's the big thing. But then number two, the more specific thing that relates to real estate is just the oversaturation of new residences everywhere. I mean, land is being bought by developers and multiple condominiums, high rises are being built everywhere. So there's just too many options for the buyers right now. There's just too many
Mhm.
unsold units that is still on the market. I think it's kind of like how New York was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
No buyers, but a lot of inventory, a lot of it. Of course, right now it's completely different because of Ryan Serhan and that channel,
Yeah.
Bravo. That's amazing. But right now here in Malaysia, there's still so many new developments. And even the new developments are not selling that well. So it's just the oversaturation of the whole market. So that's how I see why I mean, obviously that's why it's going down.
Yeah, just essentially an excessive inventory right now is what you're seeing, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Do you see that? And I think like it's we're getting more into like predictions and into the future. Do you foresee that kind of taking a shift as well? Kind of like what New York did, or do you think that's going to be the long game is that it's just going to be more inventory than there is demand?
Because New York is quite limited, it's very small.
Right.
It's a very small space. So I think for New York, it only took 2 years before it just flipped 360. But for Malaysia, I think it's gonna be a long game. At least at least 5 to 8 years before we see any pauses in this decline. So 5, 8 years, I'm guessing it's gonna stay the same. And then hopefully after 8 year or 10 year, we'll begin to see some increase. So that's what I think. Nothing's gonna happen in the short term. If you're giving it 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, I think we're still gonna see some slight dips. Not massive dips, but slight dips still.
Wow. Yeah, so that's super interesting because and I think I'm just thinking about like what agents in the U.S. or like maybe some other countries are saying to their clients, and usually we always say you got to buy real estate now because the market's only going to go up, right? That's kind of like a go-to line. Everybody says that. People who are not real estate agents are actually making jokes online of people saying that,
I've
but
seen it.
yeah, right. Yeah. So, yeah. So, like, but in your case, right, the market clearly it's not. That's not the case. So, what are you like? How are you phrasing it or structuring the deal to a client or structuring the transaction to a potential client where you're actually getting them, convincing them to purchase real estate when even you just said right now the market's actually not going to go up in like maybe next 10 years.
Yep. So right now we have two kind of buyers here in Malaysia. I'm sure everywhere else as well.
Hmm.
So the first buyer is the buyer who is buying it out of necessity. They just
Right.
want a place to stay. So these buyers, they will always be around,
Hmm.
regardless of whatever price or etc. etc. Market going down or up. It doesn't matter to them because they're not buying a house, they're buying a home, which they plan on staying in for the next 10, 20 years. So those buyers will always be around, which is our bread and butter right now. But on the other hand, you have the investors, whereby they're looking for value, they're looking for something
Yeah.
cheap. So investors, they are still around, but only if we have like a really good deal. Something that is supposed to be 600K, but the owner is selling at 5, then this unit will be suitable for that specific investor. But sometimes we can just phrase it by saying that, of course, when you buy it now, there's no guarantees. I, honestly, we tell them straight off, it's not going to go up in the next 3 to 4 years. I'm sure you know that as well. And usually they would nod their heads. Yeah, 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 because they're investors. Yeah, 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 yeah. So if you want to invest right now, just be prepared to invest for the long term. Don't think 1 to 2 years. So since they already have that self preparation of not seeing any upward increase for next few years, and if they do still want to buy it, that's their decision. But usually they would, yeah.
Yeah, and is that what you're seeing as well? Is that you're working? Are you working more right now with people who are buying for necessity, who are buying a home, versus investors? Because clearly, it might take a more long term or strategic investor in a down market to make their money back, right? So are you working more with the home buyers for necessity?
Yes, correct. I would say out of 10 deals,
Hmm.
7 to 8 deals would be buyers who are buying out of necessity.
Wow. Yeah, so that's definitely more of the majority
Yep.
versus the investor side of things. and
Yeah.
and that brings up like a really good question for me, or a really good point as well, is that is that kind of affected the way that you're messaging some of your marketing materials or some of the content that you're putting out as well, that you're seeing that's the majority of the market? Are you kind of tailoring your content now, or tailoring your content and changing it more towards people who are buying a home versus maybe like talking more about numbers and
Yeah.
areas of
Def-
investment?
definitely, definitely, definitely. But I think it is more towards structuring the marketing style to home buyers rather
Mhm.
than talking too much about numbers. But we do incorporate some of that number sort of marketing style into it as well. Because when a person buys a place for stay, it's great. But it's good to know that, oh, it's a great deal as well. Oh, the ROI is this much. Oh, within the next 5 years, it might potentially go higher. So it's just good to know, but it's just a side thing. The main thing is the location that they want, the size of the property, the conditioning. That's the main thing that they're looking for. But it's good to know that, the ROI is this much, how much. It's good to know.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, it always is. And I think that's what you have to do as well, as you provide the information, but you do it in a way where it's not intimidating or it's not confusing, or it's relevant to a home buyer whose main goal is to just get into a home,
Yep.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So awesome, man. So here's something I've been curious about. So in a down market in Malaysia, like right now, so what are some like key things to look for if you are like going to just buy a property, whether if it's for investment purposes? So I think this might be two different questions, but like I but for investment purposes first, what are you like? What are some things you want to like actually look for if you wanted to invest in in a property in Malaysia right now?
Well, for a seasoned investor, the conditioning of the property really doesn't matter. It could have cracks, it could have leaking issues, the ceiling could be falling off. Doesn't really matter. For a seasoned investor, when they see that, they know that's fixable. Obviously, it's fixable. Everything's fixable. They just look at the numbers. Is it 5% ROI per year? Is it 6? Is it 7? And if it just meets the numbers, they can just buy it straight off for the seasoned investor. But for the new person that comes in, they want to invest, but they're a little bit scared. They've never done it before. When they see the ceiling falling, they just get scared. Regardless of the percentages of the yearly return, 7, it could be 8%, it could be 10%. But they're just so afraid to pull that trigger because the external outlook doesn't look nice. Honestly, if it looked great, you're not gonna get a very good ROI
Yeah,
because no one
exactly.
is gonna sell it to you cheap.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's about taking the emotions out of it, right?
yeah,
Yeah, making decisions based on a business. That's really what it is. It's an investment, and you want to take your emotions out of anything that you're making a strategic business decision on. So
yeah,
have you had a lot of those conversations with newer investors as well, who
yeah,
might be putting their emotions into it?
yeah. I mean, sometimes when they're a little bit too cautious, when they see that, they get worried. And the last thing that they want is a real estate agent telling them that, oh, no, 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 it's fine. This is fine. It's all fine. It's fixable. So it's like I mean, they can clearly tell that you're trying to get the deal done. You're convincing them. I mean, that's the last thing that they want to see. For me, I would just let them know, yeah, the plaster, based on my experience, is going to cost around 3,000 ringgit to fix it. And not just that, look at this. There's a small crack on the tile. So that one requires changing as well if you plan on using it for rental purposes. Changing that tile is going to set you back not too much, but around 1,500 to 1,008. So for the ceiling and the tile, it's going to come around to 5 to 6,000 ringgit. But if we take that into account, da, 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 your ROI is still 6, 7%. Of course, if you can get a cheaper contractor to come in, ROI could be higher. So I'm not trying to hide it. You never want to, new agents will want to hide. They want to convince. But when you're a little bit more seasoned, you know what the buyer wants to hear. You let them know. Not just that, but this as well. Oh, don't forget about the kitchen. The kitchen will require some repairs as well.
Yeah.
So when the buyer buys, because they're not seasoned investors, they're new, they're scared. When you talk to them in such a way, they feel comfortable. You're honest, you're upfront, you're straightforward. You know exactly what you're talking about. And yeah, I see the damages that needs to be done. If they're not interested, of course they're not going to buy. But if they are interested, they're going to buy it straight away.
Exactly, and I think right. I think that's just something that new agents don't quite understand. They think they're selling the product, right? They think that they're selling the specific property as the product. Where I think a seasoned agent like yourself, somebody who's more successful, realize that it's more about the service you're providing, right? You're selling your service. You're the product, right? Essentially, is that kind of the mindset that you go through as well versus new agent who might be they think they're selling a specific property as the actual product, and they just try to convince people why they need to buy that versus you where you come from a different approach where you're giving every information because you understand that you're selling the service.
I would say, yeah, that's one of the bigger differences. But for a new real estate agent, they still have to go through that phase of
Mhm.
trying to convince, trying to sell. They still have to go through it. until one day they realize that, that's not the way. I mean, every person has to go through it. They cannot
Yeah.
get from A to C without getting through B first.
Right.
Just depends on
That's
how
awesome.
fast you get there.
Yep, exactly. And that's I think that's the same journey you went through, right? With your
Oh,
videos and
yep.
being
Exactly same.
direct and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
yeah.
Last time I thought I had to sell. I had to convince. But there's no such thing. You can't convince a person to stay here for the next 10 years. There's no such thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep, that's such a great mindset to have, and I think for agents that are just starting out, right, that might be working a deal that's listening to this podcast right now, definitely keep that in mind. You are not selling a specific product. You are coming from a consultative approach. You're selling yourself as a service, essentially. So make sure that you're taking the value approach, that you're giving people value. You're not trying to directly convince people to do something that they don't want to do because it's not going to work out. That's not going to look good on you, and it's not going to close the deal eventually because nobody's going to, be convinced to do something they don't want to do.
Yeah.
So awesome, man. Well, Victor, hey, looking forward down into the future. You're still very young. 26, you're already very successful. So looking into the future, man, like what's next for you? Like what's the big vision? What's the goal for you in terms of real estate? Are you looking to start your own company? Are you looking to build a team in the future? Or are you kind of just want to push through this video marketing thing. So what's next for you?
Well, what's next for me is to, of course, push for this video marketing. That's something that I would really want to do. And then in terms of team, maybe not a massive team, but just a couple of people, something that I can manage easily, not too much stress.
Right.
Because now I realize that it's not just about the money.
Yeah.
I want to have a team that's not too big to the point where I'm very stressful. So I just want to have like a comfortable amount of people under me within the next 1 or 2 years. And while handling that, I'll still be doing my own sales, but not as much as I used to do it, but just a comfortable amount will be okay.
Yeah.
I just want like a happy life for now.
Yeah.
Nothing too serious. I wouldn't want to be like Ryan Serhan, uber successful, just everywhere. Maybe one day my mindset might change, but then for now, that's not exactly what I'm looking for.
Yep. That's awesome, man. And it's really, I think it's really important for us to all just be honest with ourselves about what our goals are, right? You don't just, and I love that, you're very clear on what you want, exactly what you want in your life. And I think that's what a lot of agents who are, I think this is more for people who are doing well, right? Because they tend to chase more versus, somebody who's not doing well. They just need to get going and start doing well. But for people who are doing well, they might think that they're not doing enough, where in reality, it's not in alignment with their goals. So I think it's awesome that you're very clear on your goals and you're okay with living the life that you want, because that's really, when it comes down to it, that's what it matters, is living the lifestyle that you want to live, and being comfortable and not having to essentially be determined or be chased around by the external factors that are controlling your life. So that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, a lot of external factors, a lot.
Yeah. Yep. And you just gotta you know brace it, and then for not force it out, but keep it out, and then focus on yourself, focus on your own goals. And that's why you're doing so well right now, and that's why no doubt about it, you're going to be living the comfortable life that you just mentioned before. So
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no problem, Victor. And thank you again for being on the show here. So I mean, before we wrap this up, do you have any parting thoughts for our audience? Anything you want to say before we wrap this up?
Parting thoughts.
Yeah.
Well, all I can say for new agents is just just fail fast and just learn fast, so that, of course, A, you cannot get to C without passing through B. Just try to pass through that as fast as you can so that you can get to C.
Mhm.
So fail more and then just get up faster.
Wow, that was awesome. That was an awesome tip, and I think all the new agents out there, that's probably the most important thing they need to understand, is that failure is part of it, and it's the faster you get to it, the faster you overcome it. So that was awesome, Victor. Um,
Yeah.
Thanks again, man. Thanks again for being on the show. I know you're super busy, so
Just
thanks
all
for taking
mine.
the time to do this. Yeah, thanks
So
for taking
much.
the time. Yep,
Thank you.
no
Thank you.
problem. Yeah, and for those who are listening out there, if you find this helpful, make sure that you give this a like, or subscribe to the podcast if you feel that you want to listen to keep up with more episodes as well. And if you feel like this episode itself was helpful, make sure that you're sharing it with a friend and referring this to somebody else as well. But thank you guys again for tuning in, and I will see you guys on the next show. Take care.
Take care. Bye.